Hello, and welcome back to Miss Bell's classroom. Today in class, what we'll be learning about is the year 1997 and some of the events that took place, and also some of the popular culture that occurred during that year. So I hope that you enjoy this lesson. So just to start off, in 1997, we're going to talk about the cost of living. So the yearly inflation rate in the United States was 2.34%. The interest rate's year-end Federal Reserve was 8.5%. The average cost of a new house was around $124,000. The average income per year was around $37,000. The cost for a gallon of gas was $1.22 average. Average monthly rent was around $575. The average cost of a new car was around $17,000. A loaf of bread would have cost you about $1.17. A movie ticket, $4.59. 1 pound of hamburger meat was $1.38. So some of the major events that happened in 1997, which I'll go over in more detail shortly. So the Thrust SSC sets the first supersonic land speed record. Steve Jobs returns to run Apple computers. Hong Kong returns to Chinese rule. The Mars Pathfinder lands on the surface of Mars. Princess Diana died in a car crash in Paris. The avian flu virus was found in Hong Kong. Chickens. Stock markets around the world crashed. Great Britain handed back Hong Kong to China. The first signs of the dreaded bird flu in China, where the first documented case of that jumps to humans, and which led to the death of 25 million chickens. In the United Kingdom, Tony Blair was the Prime Minister. So one of the major events that happened during this year was the death of Princess Diana. As you can see here, it's Princess Diana. So she was killed in a car crash on August 31st in Paris, France. The princess was traveling with her friend Dodi Al-Fayed, who was also killed in the crash, as well as the driver of the vehicle. The vehicle hit a wall after the driver lost control when trying to evade the paparazzi. The driver lost control, and after the crash, it was determined that the driver, Henry Paul, was at fault, and due to the blood test taken. Another event was the United Kingdom picture. So the first successfully cloned mammal was revealed by the Roslin Institute. So Dolly the sheep. There's Dolly the sheep. So, scientists at the Roslin Institute in Edinburgh, Scotland, announced that they had successfully cloned a sheep. The sheep named Dolly was born in July of the previous year, but they had waited to announce the scientific breakthrough until February of 1997, when they could also publish their research on the process. Dolly the sheep was the first mammal to have been successfully cloned from an adult cell. She was put down in 2003 after suffering from health complications related to progressive lung disease. Many people believe that the cloning of the sheep was a controversial step in genetic research, thinking it could lead to human cloning. Others, really praised the breakthrough and with hope that it would lead to more important medical discoveries. In the US, the Deep Blue defeats Kasparov. So IBM's Deep Blue chess-playing computer defeated chess champion Garry Kasparov, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, during May. The computer won Game 6 of the matchup, becoming the first computer to defeat the world champion chess player under tournament conditions. At this point in Gary's career, the 34-year-old had never lost to a human opponent, and the loss to Deep Blue was the first time he had to resign a game in less than 20 moves. Deep Blue's win marked an important point in the development of artificial intelligence, as observers noted it as a point when computers' development began to outpace human development. Another event that happened was with Madeleine Albright. So Madeleine Albright became the first female Secretary of State for the first time in the United States history. The Lion King musical took place on Broadway. So the Lion King musical made its debut on Broadway at the New Amsterdam Theater during November of 1997. Produced by Disney, the musical was based on the hit Disney animation film of the same name from 1994. So using elaborate puppetry, costumes, and choreography, the musical retold the film's story of a royal lion cub reclaiming his throne from his uncle after his father's death. Julie Taymor, the show's director, became the first woman to win a Tony Award for directing The Lion King, proving it to be very popular, and the show is still currently running on Broadway. The Scotland referendum. So Scotland votes to create its own parliament after 290 years of its union with England. So during September of 1997, Scottish citizens voted in a referendum to determine whether or not Scotland should create its own parliament and devolve some powers from the United Kingdom. Of the 60.4% of voters who turned out for the referendum, 74.9% voted in favor of the creation of a Scottish-run parliament. So another 63.5% of voters also agreed that the Scottish Parliament should be allowed to have tax-varying powers. The Parliament of the United Kingdom recognized the referendum results and passed the Scotland Act of 1998, creating a devolved parliament for Scotland. So elections for the new governing body were held in May of 1999, and by July of 1999, the Scottish Parliament began full operations. Some other major events from 1997 on Mars, the NASA Pathfinder lands. So NASA's Mars Pathfinder lander and rover arrived at Mars during July of 1997. It had been launched during December of 1996, and the Mars Pathfinder consisted of a rover named Sojourner and lander named Carl Sagan Memorial Station. Pathfinder's mission was to take photos of the surface, study the composition of rocks, and collect information about the soil, atmosphere, and collect information about the wind as well. So the rover successfully completed its mission and brought data back in September of 1997. Another popular thing in 1997 was Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So this is a shot of the cover, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. This was a very popular book during that year. So the very first book in Harry Potter series right here was published by Bloomsbury in the United Kingdom during June of 1997. The book, titled Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, was an immediate success in the United Kingdom and was soon released in the United States in September of 1998 under the name Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, written by J.K. Rowling, who had struggled to get it published for years. The 7-book series became a well-loved franchise by children and adults. The series was also made into movies beginning in 2001 and inspired the creation of a wizard-themed amusement park in Universal Studios as well. Comet Hale-Bopp. So the Comet Hale-Bopp had its closest approach to Earth. So in April of 1997, Hale-Bopp comet reached its brightest point. As it passed at its closest point to the sun, the comet was discovered in July of 1995 by Alan Hale and Thomas Bopp. For whom it was named, it became plainly visible to the human eye in May of 1996 and continued to be visible in the night sky until September of 1997. The Hale-Bopp comet was visible for 18 months, which was more than double the previous record-holding comet. It was also thought to be unusually bright, which many people credited to the fact that it was abnormally big in diameter compared to most other comets. Hong Kong Chinese rule. So Hong Kong returned to the Chinese rule from UK rule. Egypt's Valley of the Kings. 70 people, including 60 foreign tourists, are gunned down by Islamic extremists in Egypt. Egypt's Valley of the Kings. Inner City 125, from Swansea to London, crashes in Southall, West London. Princess Diana's funeral was watched by 1.5 billion people around the world. The Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol agreed when 150 countries signed up at a global warming conference in Kyoto, Japan. Microsoft becomes the world's most valuable company, valued at $261 billion. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closes above 7,000 for the first time. Tony Blair becomes the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Mother Teresa died in Calcutta. In Nigeria, an armed Islamic group continues its reign and killing innocent villagers in an attempt to overthrow the Algerian government and replace it with an Islamic government. World hunger. So the UN announced that 18 million people die annually from world hunger and undernourishment. The U.S. Gerald tornado hit Gerald, Texas. Luxembourg was the richest country in the world with an average per capita income of $41,000, followed by Switzerland and then Japan. Wales devolution. So Wales votes in favor of devolution and formation of the National Assembly. Australia has El Nino. So El Nino forms in the oceans between Australia, causing severe weather conditions, including hurricanes in the southern hemisphere and colder temperatures in the north. In 1997, the stock markets crashed. So stock markets around the world crashed because of a global economic crisis and scare, and in response to a 554.26 point free fall on November 24th, New York Stock Exchange officials invoked the circuit breaker rule and put a halt to the trading. Mike Tyson bites Evander Holyfield's ear. So Mike Tyson bites his ear during a match and was then suspended from boxing. Louise Woodward, a British au pair, was found guilty of second-degree murder in Boston for killing the baby in her care. Woolworths closes its remaining discount stores after more than 100 years of trading. O.J. Simpson was found guilty. The Peru Japanese embassy siege. So the siege of the Japanese embassy ends in Peru when troops storm the embassy and free all but one of 72 hostages inside. The Hong Kong avian flu. So Hong Kong avian flu occurred. So Hong Kong killed all the chickens within its territory, around 1.25 million. To stop the spread of the potentially deadly influenza strain known as avian flu, bird flu was thought only to infect birds until the first human cases were seen on May 19th in Hong Kong in 1997. The European Union major flooding. So due to torrential rains, many rivers flood in Europe, causing mass flooding to villages and towns in many parts of Europe. Tiger Woods, at 21 years old, became the youngest ever golfer to win the Masters. History of golf. With Apple computers, Steve Jobs returns to run Apple computers. And here it is. A photo of Apple computers from the past. So you can see they had different colors like orange, red, blue, green. Here's one of them. Still have the Apple logo on there. Carlos the Jackal was caught and sentenced by a French court to life in prison. French truck drivers form roadblocks around the country at ports, oil refineries, and major roads. Gianni Versace, regarding him, so Andrew Cunanan committed suicide after murdering 4 people, including the fashion designer Gianni Versace in Miami. WorldCom Communications announced the largest merger in history with MCI Communications. The technology in 1997, so scientists in Scotland revealed Dolly the sheep. Successful cloning of that. Microsoft became the world's most valuable company, valued at $261 billion. The Internet Explorer version 4 was released. Microsoft bought a minority stake for around $150 million. The Simpsons becomes the longest running prime time shows. The Harry Potter book was released and became very, very popular. So some of the popular films in 1997 were Titanic, The Last World, Jurassic Park, Men in Black, Tomorrow Never Dies, Air Force One, As Good as It Gets, Liar Liar, My Best Friend's Wedding, The Fifth Element, The Full Monty, Batman and Robin, The Rainmaker. Popular musicians in 1997, Mariah Carey, Smashing Pumpkins, Foo Fighters, 9 Inch Nails, The Verve, Counting Crows, Lenny Kravitz, Celine Dion, Daft Punk, Sneaker Pimps, Fleetwood Mac, Spice Girls, Radiohead, Garth Brooks, Hanson, The Offspring, Bryan Adams, Aerosmith. So the largest music concert in history was played by Jean-Michel Jarre in Moscow. It was attended by around 3.5 million people, and and the number matched Rod Stewart at the Copacabana Beach in Rio in 1994. The 60s TV show Lost in Space took place in 1997. Julia Butterfly Hill on December 10th, 1997, ascended 180 feet up the Redwood Luna to stave off Pacific Lumber Co. loggers who were clear cutting. Hill lived on 2 6-by-6-foot platforms for 738 days until a resolution was reached for the lodging company. A little bit more about popular culture. Reverend Robert Shields had a diary so long that it filled 94 boxes and contained 37.5 million words. He chronicled every 5 minutes of his life between 1972 and 1997. Robert Metcalf predicted in 1995 that the internet would collapse in 1996, and eat his words if it did not. In 1997, he blended a printed copy of that speech with liquid and drank the mixture. Here is Robert Metcalf. The Great Comic Switcheroo of 1997, so several large comic strips were switched creators for a day. Pepsi held a contest to win a life-size replica of the Simpsons house for $75,000 or $75,000. The contest winner chose the cash. The house, which cost $120,000 to build, was renovated to look like a normal home and resold. Lottie Williams is the only person to have been hit by re-entering space debris. She was walking through a park in Tulsa, Oklahoma at 3:30 a.m. and felt tapping on her shoulder. It was a piece of the fuel tank of the Delta II rocket that was launched in 1996. She was unhurt. Morgan Freeman offered to cover the cost of prom for a Mississippi school that held 2 racially segregated proms every year, provided that the one Freeman would be covering would be one racially integrated prom. This offer was refused until 2008. Alex Trebek and Pat Sajak swapped places on Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune as an April Fool's Day joke. Toy manufacturer Mattel sued MCA Records over Aqua's hit Barbie Girl. After ruling the lawsuit, MCA's countersuit was to be dismissed due to parody production under the First Amendment. The judge concluded his ruling by stating the parties are advised to chill. 14-year-old Nathan Zoner was able to get 43 out of 50 of his classmates to vote to ban dihydrogen monoxide for his science fair project. His project aimed to prove that the use of true facts can lead to ignorant public false conclusions. He won first prize. Dihydrogen monoxide is another description for water. Leanne Rimes was the youngest person ever to win the Best New Artist Grammy. Perel was launched as a product for consumers. It had only been used in the healthcare setting prior to 1997. It did come out in 1988, sorry. The Weezer song, Michael and Carly, released in 1994, was about 2 sisters who established the band's fan club and are considered the band's #1 fan. Titanic won 11 Oscars. In 1997, there was an episode of Goosebumps called The Click. In it, a kid gets a universal remote, uses it to pause his sister, changes the color of his fish. Fast forward through time, 9 years later, Adam Sandler stars in the same movie with the same name with a similar premise. Steve Wynn bought a Picasso for $45 million and accidentally put his elbow through it, causing over $90,000 in damages. The story added value to the painting and was sold for over $155 million in 2003. And that is a photograph. The Picasso painting, and see one that is famously had his elbow through. St. Patrick, or Sir Patrick Stewart, put on and starred in a photo negative production of Othello. He starred as a white Othello opposite a black cast. It was the first time this concept was used. A cost of a Super Bowl ad in 1997, about $1.2 million. An IBM supercomputer known as Deep Blue beat the chess world player. Gary, we talked about that. In 1929, 23.9% of a family's income went to food, where in 1997, 10.7% of a family's income went to food. Brad Pitt sued Playgirl after they ran paparazzi pics of him with his then-girlfriend Gwyneth Paltrow on vacation. An episode of Pokemon featured a scene with flashing lights and induced mass seizures in children across the country. And a subsequent news report replayed the scene and prompted more seizures. Okay, well, I think that is everything that I would like to cover today. So I hope that you enjoyed the year 1997, and stay tuned for 1998.